One rookie contract worth $78,000 just helped create over $1 billion in economic activity, and she did it without ever seeing a single cent of that money herself. That gap between what Caitlin Clark earns and what Caitlin Clark generates is one of the strangest stories in modern sports business. And it started with a college player who simply refused to stop shooting from 30 feet out. Before we get into the numbers, picture the state of women's professional basketball in early 2024. Attendance at Women's National Basketball Association games averaged around 6,000 fans per night. Television deals were an afterthought compared to their male counterparts. Merchandise sales barely registered as a line item for most retailers. The league was profitable in pockets, but nobody was calling it a business empire. Nobody was calling it anything close. Then a guard from Iowa entered the draft, and within months, every one of those numbers started moving in a direction nobody predicted, least of all the league itself. Let's start with the draft night. When Clark was selected first overall by the Indiana Fever, the broadcast pulled in over 2 million viewers on ESPN. That was already a record for a WNBA draft. But draft night hype fades fast in most sports. What made this different is that the hype never faded. It compounded. By the end of her rookie season, Clark's games were drawing an average of 1.2 million viewers whenever she took the court, according to ESPN's own broadcast data. Her preseason debut alone crossed 1.3 million viewers, a number that would have been unthinkable for a regular season game just 2 years earlier. Fever home attendance jumped to over 17,000 fans per game, nearly triple the league average from before she arrived. Now here's where an economist entered the story, and this is the part most people miss. Dr. Ryan Brewer, a finance professor at Indiana University, was asked by the Indianapolis Star to actually put a number on what Clark meant to the league's bottom line. He didn't guess. He built a model using ticket revenue, merchandise sales, and television advertising value, then isolated how much of that activity could be directly attributed to her presence. His conclusion was that Clark accounted for 26.5% of all economic activity across the entire WNBA in her rookie year, not 26% of the Fever's business. 26% of the whole league, spread across 12 teams and hundreds of players, traced back to one 22-year-old rookie. Merchandise told the same story from a different angle. Fanatics reported a 500% jump in sales tied to her jersey and related products. Dick's Sporting Goods saw a 233% increase in women's basketball merchandise sales during the same stretch. These are not marketing department estimates designed to sound impressive. These are retail sales figures from companies that have no incentive to inflate them because their own inventory planning depends on getting these numbers right. So how does one player move a national retailer's sales figures? The honest answer is that Clark didn't just bring new fans to existing WNBA games. She brought an entirely different audience that had never watched women's basketball before. And that audience brought its spending habits with it. College football fans, casual sports viewers, people who followed her from Iowa's run to the national championship game, all of them started showing up to Fever broadcasts and buying merchandise the same way they would for any team they cared about. This is where her impact stopped being about one player and started reshaping the entire league's negotiating position. Every media rights deal is priced based on projected viewership and advertiser demand. When the WNBA sat down to negotiate its next television contract, it was negotiating from a position it had never held before, backed by real, measurable audience growth rather than a hopeful pitch about potential. The result was an 11-year media rights agreement worth $2.2 billion, set to begin airing across NBC, Amazon, and Disney platforms in 2026. That figure alone is expected to roughly triple the league's existing media revenue. And while Clark is far from the only reason the league secured that deal, Professor Brewer's own analysis pointed directly to her as the single biggest driver behind the audience growth that made the number possible in the first place. Now, here's the part of the story that makes this genuinely strange rather than just impressive. Clark's actual salary during that rookie season was $78,066. under the league's old rookie pay scale that was simply what a first-round pick earned. Compare that figure to the near billion-dollar economic impact Brewer projected for her second season, and you get a gap so large it sounds like a rounding error rather than a real compensation structure. Her pay represented roughly 0.002% of the value she generated for the league that year. That gap became impossible to ignore, and it directly shaped what happened next. The players' union opted out of its existing collective bargaining agreement, choosing to negotiate a new deal rather than wait out the current one, specifically because the new media revenue was about to hit the league's accounts, and players wanted a real share of it. Under the new agreement, Clark's salary jumped to $530,000, still a fraction of her generated value, but a clear signal of how much leverage the entire roster gained once the numbers became public. And this is the piece that turns Clark's story from a single-player narrative into something closer to an entire economic ecosystem. Every player who shared a court with her saw some version of this effect. Angel Reese, her college rival turned professional counterpart, built an endorsement portfolio partly through a rivalry that only existed at this scale because Clark made it nationally relevant. Sophie Cunningham, a teammate largely unknown outside basketball circles before 2024, gained hundreds of thousands of new followers after a single on-court moment defending Clark went viral. Aja Wilson, Sabrina Ionescu, Paige Bueckers, none of them needed Clark to be talented, but all of them benefited from an audience that got dramatically larger the moment she entered the league. Economists have a specific term for this kind of effect. It's called an externality, a benefit created by one party that spills over to others who had no direct role in creating it. Clark generated attention and revenue she could never fully capture through her own contract, and that spillover flowed outward to broadcast partners, to sponsors, to arena operators selling more tickets and concessions, and to nearly every other player in the league, whose market value shifted upwards simply because more people were now paying attention to women's basketball as a category. None of this happened through a corporate strategy meeting or a marketing campaign built years in advance. It happened because one player shot from distances defenders weren't used to covering, played with a competitive intensity that translated well to television, and arrived at exactly the moment cable networks and streaming platforms were hungry for new audiences willing to watch live sports. The empire wasn't built. It assembled itself around her, one broadcast and one box score at a time. So the next time someone tells you a single athlete can't actually move an entire industry, point them toward the numbers. 26.5% of a league's economic activity, a $2.2 billion television deal, a players' union renegotiating its entire contract structure. All of it traced back to a rookie earning less in her first season than some assistant coaches make in a single year. That's not hype. That's a documented case study in how attention, once it reaches a certain scale, turns directly into money, whether anyone planned for it or not.